looking out the window like, oh, who's this guy? Then it was funny because I finally met the guy, a few years later, and it was just really funny because he's ended up being like a shorter guy, and I mean, but he sounded, I mean, I'm pretty sure he could really kick some ass, but I'm just saying on the phone, right? I was like, dude, this guy sounds like he has tattoos on his face, right? Goes around brass knuckles all the time. Plus, he's grouchy because his tooth is hurting. So there's a little BTS here behind the scenes for you guys on that classic icon. Can I say it's iconic? I feel like yeah, it's iconic. Malfunction prank call, the dental office. That was by request. 824 Tuesday, May 17th. Let's head into the KUAM News Link Zoom room where we have Andrew and Venari standing by from E. Penangan. It's the University of Guam. Let me get this right. Is it a suicide awareness and prevention project?
Yes, we're the suicide prevention and suicide campus awareness program.
Right.
So we primarily focus on outreach and in prevention efforts to spread awareness of suicide, like the stats and how to get help for suicide in the campus and the broader community.
Right. And so I follow you guys on Instagram. Guys, if you guys have an Instagram, that's a great follow. They post a lot of really awesome content. And so I saw something you guys have posted recently, and I know that over at Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness, too, there was some talk about the data with suicides, which you guys have and are going to come on. And so do you guys want to just, I'll give the floor to you, and then you could, talk about the data, the numbers, the trends, whatever slide you sent over.
Sure.
And then I'll come on
All
with
right.
some questions. Okay, so yeah, again, we're going to give the floor here to E. Penangan, represented this morning by Venari and Andrew, right here on the link. It's 824. Go ahead.
All right. So as you all know, the last few years we've come under kind of a issue, and that issue being the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So it's really interesting to see that we've got the 2020 statistics. The 2021 isn't currently out yet. So the latest that we have for the public is for the 2020. And that's essentially the height of the pandemic, right? Because it all kind of happened around, I think it was the end of 2019. But with the statistics, at least when you look at it stateside, there was a lower reported suicide rate stateside, but that wasn't the same for Guam. When you look at Guam, we actually had a much higher suicide rate. In fact, if you look at the admissions into Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness in 2020, the statistics show that while there were overall less admissions, it was double the patients with suicide ideations and attempts. Like it went significantly higher. You could even see that the rate for suicide increased like quite a lot from 2019 to 2020. When you look at the populations, about 49% of the population that attempted suicide or not attempted, but died by suicide was those under 29 years old. So yeah, 49%. And the populations that were most at risk were the Chamorro populations, followed by the Chuukese populations.
Let me get it because I know Andrew. I said I wanted you guys to give it the floor, but right away, I think one of the obvious questions to ask is why do you think there's a difference between the data you saw in the States, which was lower, and the data you see here in Guam, which is, I mean, in some cases lower, but specifically dealing with suicide higher? Can you kind of explain what you guys think causes that?
So my theory when it comes to this is, I guess when it comes to suicide, Guam, when you think about stateside, the states they're very individualistic. You have your own little families, and when it comes down to it, I guess staying home while it is hard to do, I get it could be a much easier transition. But like when you're in Guam, our society is very collectivistic. So what that means is we don't just have mom, dad, and children, right? We have mom, dad, aunt, grandma, grandpa, uncles, aunts, cousin, or I already said aunts, but cousins, and you have a really large family, and people were isolated. You were not allowed to go see a lot of the people that you saw as like your close family. You had to stay away from them. People are a lot closer to their grandparents, and you weren't allowed to see your grandparents because, people were afraid of giving their grandparents COVID. And not only that, just like we have quite the culture when it comes to like going out, having fiestas, parties, seeing your friends. But we could not do any of that. That was not allowed. Socializing dropped significantly. People were stuck at home, or they were supposed to be stuck at home, And not only that, like I guess when it also came to getting help, access to getting support became quite difficult. But thankfully, Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness completely revamped the phone services, and now it's super duper amazing now. They're able to get lots of calls with the crisis helpline and get a lot of help out to the people in need there. Do you have any ideas, Ben?
No, I think you covered it all. You said it so well.
I'm sorry.
So basically, and to kind of summarize what you said, Andrew, is that the pandemic hit different here because we're more intertwined, and we live, pretty much in each other's lives. Whereas in the States, you're right, there's a lot of separation.
That's what I feel was going on.
But do you think colonization, any factors with colonization play into these statistics?
Well, I'm not too sure, but when it came to the Chamorro population being the highest, the highest deaths, the highest suicide rate, there is a theory about colonization in that when it comes to if you think about any areas that have been colonized, and you look at the statistics for suicide there, it's almost always the indigenous communities that have the highest suicide rates in those areas. So whether it's the First Nations or the Aboriginals or the Native
Chamorros.
Americans, the Chamorro, like the suicide rate has always been extremely high for those populations. So that may also explain why the Chamorro have some of the highest suicide rate even in the last year.
Right. And so can you go down the ethnicities again? So Chamorros were
so the Chamorro had the highest suicide rate, and that's closely followed by the Chuukese populations. And when it comes to the Chuukese, I also feel like the Chuukese populations, I also feel like it's because of the separation from family, not being able to see other family members, or being, this isn't just specific for the Chuukese population, but being stuck at home. And let's say you do have let's say like spousal abuse and such, like sometimes people would be able to escape from that. But if you're stuck at home, you can't escape from that, So yeah, it was the Chamorro population that was the highest, followed by the Chuukese, other Micronesians, and then it goes to like other Asians, and then like the white population and the Filipino population, like all much lower.
Right. So, I mean, when you look at this data, I don't know if you have access to data, to compare from, before the pandemic. You're talking about increases, right? Has it reached the state where, I mean, obviously one suicide is one too many, right? But are we in a crisis right now?
Well, if you look at data like 10, 20 years ago, right, our suicide rates are significantly higher than what it was well before. In fact, if you look at like trends, it overall shows like Earth, the suicide rate is just slowly climbing.
Venari, why do you think that is?
Well, there could be a lot of factors, but in terms of the pandemic, I think I wanted to add that I feel that financial stressors might also be a challenge and a factor to that. When the pandemic hit, people lost their jobs. Um, Economically, um, most countries in Guam didn't do so well, so that could have also been a factor.
Yeah, I felt it, Venari. When I remember when GDOE was first doing the food distribution, right? I went out to a couple of the lines, and you could just, in talking to people, you could feel the exasperation, the desperation, right? We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know if it was going to be, 2 months or 2 years, right? I mean, just when you talk about us living as a collective, I think I can say that collectively we were, freaking the hell out, right? I mean, to put it in that way. What about, I wanted to maybe pivot just a little bit, social media, right? There's a lot of talk about social media, and I know the AG, I mean, they're suing TikTok, right? So how much of this, and I know it's kind of like this perfect storm of the pandemic and maybe, peer pressure and social media and stuff, but how much of a factor is social media when you talk about, like false realities that people craft and just that pressure to kind of live up to this unachievable norm that many of our young people see on social media?
Would you like to have a kick at that then?
Well, I'm not so sure about research in the studies, but we've read that social media has been a factor to depression and other mental illnesses. And one of the risks of suicide is having a history of mental illness. Yeah, so it's related.
Andrew?
So, when it comes to, just like you were saying, when it comes to social media and such, people follow what they want to follow, right? So you can create like a perfect vacuum of just the things that you want to see. But sometimes there are people just, you see the things you want to see, and then people also can strive. They're like, oh, these people that I follow or my friends on social media, their lives are like this. Why isn't my life like this? Why can't I have a life like this? I want something like they're doing, but I can't get that. And they just end up comparing what people are posting to their own personal life. And even though when it comes to people that are posting their things, that may not be the actuality when it comes to their life, right?
Yeah.
People post the perfect moments. They post moments of happiness, but they may not actually be all that happy as well.
Right. I mean, I feel you on this, Andrew. I mean, even as an adult looking at social media, it's very easy to get caught up in what you see and make comparisons to your own life. But you're right. I mean, we don't only just see what we want to see. We create a reality that we think other people are going to want to see. I mean, take my social media, for example. I actually had a laugh about this last night. So I went on the air, made an announcement, and, my Instagram is just blowing up all day. People like, you're a legend, you're the GOAT, thank you for your service. So humbling, right? But at the end of the day, I go home, I crawl into my bed all by myself, and I curl up with my pillow and go to sleep alone, So, I mean, it's funny. And I'm not saying that I have a problem with that. I'm just saying you never really know what someone's reality is, even my reality, right? And that's the thing with social media is I feel like when it first started, it was probably as real as it could be. But then as it went on with the advent, with the Kardashians and so-called reality TV and just this insane world that I think for the most part, regular people, they get it. They get that that's not reality, right? But again, when you have younger people, they aren't able to differentiate between, what's real and what's social media real. I think that's where it kind of gets really sketchy.
Yeah, exactly. Some people may confuse what's real for social media to be completely real in everyday lives. Not everything you see on the internet is real. Shocker, I know. But,
Spoiler alert.
but when it comes to just what you see on the internet, don't believe everything is to be as perfect as some people make it out to be.
Right. So we have a problem. How do we reach people? I know that's a big part of what you guys do at the University of Guam. And I think the first thing is, right, we do have a problem, so you acknowledge you have a problem. How do you reach out to people? And how accurate is that thing that you always hear, ask your friends how they're doing, check on your friends, ask them how their mental health. Does that work?
Want to have I go at it, Ben?
What we've been teaching in our presentations for suicide prevention is to always be specific. When you ask or when you're wondering if someone is thinking of suicide, be specific and ask them, are you thinking of suicide? Because if you just beat around the bush and you just ask them, are you thinking of hurting yourself? That's really broad. It could mean a lot of things. You're not so sure if it's suicide or not. And it's always good to take it seriously whenever you suspect it, because you never know. It's better to be safe than to be sorry.
Right.
When it comes,
Andrew, when you're asking someone, are you thinking about suicide? And let's say they say yes. What do you do then?
And so when you ask someone and they say yes, they're thinking about suicide, everything, like whether you are being 100% serious or not, everything does become serious right then and there. If someone does say that they've thought about suicide, just sit down, talk to them, and just see what's up with them, like see what's going on. As you talk to them, you can find out like the issue that's causing them to become suicidal, if they're willing to open up to you about it. But be sure to see if they have a plan when it comes to suicide, because of all the warning signs that we like to tell the people that we present to, like of all the warning signs, the biggest red flag to know of is whether they have a plan for suicide or not. Because like a wedding, the more details you have like planned out, like once you have a date, once you have a place, and how it's going to happen, all you have to do is follow through. There's no more planning involved.
Right.
And it's the planning that's like the most difficult part. If they have a plan, that's extremely serious and you have to get them help. And
do you guys do like not acting, but I mean when you're talking about this conversation, right, Ven? I mean, I'm asking my friend, are you having suicidal thoughts? They say yes. How do I get to that point where without it sounding like, well, how are you going to do it? Or do you have a plan? I mean, how do you guys advise people to move forward in a conversation like that? Or is that when you call a professional or something? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You want to go, Ben?
Oh yeah, so in our suicide prevention trainings or presentations, we have a little activity where we list out the risk factors of suicide, like alcohol or drug abuse or isolation. So we list all that out and we ask people to say, sometimes people who think of suicide might be experiencing a lot of drug use or alcohol abuse, and you seem to have some of these traits. Are you thinking of suicide? So that's typically how we would teach how to ask that question.
And when it comes to suicide or like checking up on your friend, like sure, you may think it's an awkward thing to bring up, but when someone thinks about it, like let's say if you really aren't feeling you haven't been feeling normal then, and I'm worried about you, if I straight up come up and ask you, are you thinking about suicide, like after talking to you a little bit, it may feel weird to the person asking it, but the person that is receiving, like who's being asked, may not feel like it's weird at all. Like, sure, you're essentially showing that you care enough to ask about that. It could feel like an awkward topic to bring up, but if it's something that can save a life, then do it. It doesn't matter if it feels a little awkward. It's something that well, can save a life.
Right. Yeah. How normal is it to have suicidal thoughts? Is it normal?
Uh, Here and there, like let's say if you make a mistake and you're like, oh no, I'm gonna kill myself, like that's pretty normal, right? But if it goes to the point where if you keep making mistakes and then you're like, I'm gonna kill myself, and then you really go to like, okay, I once you really start thinking more into it, not just saying, oh, I'm gonna kill myself, right? Once you start thinking more into it, then it becomes much more of an issue, because it can also be something that I've said it before. Like it's like, oh no, I'm going to kill myself, but I didn't actually mean it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if you're feeling depressed, if you constantly start thinking about it, and it evolves then into more than just that, then that's when suicide may be like a real big issue.
Well, you guys are doing great work. How do people get a hold of you if they want to find out more about? You know what I love about you guys' Instagram, first of all, is I feel like you really put the information out there in a way that's accessible. You know what I mean? Not, dumping a bunch of data on our head. I like the graphics you use. It makes it real easy to understand, right?
Go, Ben.
Thank you. So I have our credentials right here. You can follow us on Instagram if you want to know more, or if you have any questions, you can message us at UOG Ipanengen on Instagram. And if you want to email us, you can email us at ipanengen@triton.uog.edu.
Andrew, anything in closing?
So when it comes to suicide, suicide is never just your own issue. Like suicide is everyone's business, right? So don't try to make it personal or anything. Like if your friend is thinking about suicide, if you think your friend is thinking about suicide, check up on them. Be sure to ask them directly, are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? And be genuine with them. If they do open up to you, don't just tell them don't do that, it's wrong. Let them open up to you. And then try your best to find help.
Yeah, at what point though do you do that, find help?
Well, say if your friend is thinking about suicide, or say if they're not thinking about suicide, but they do need help regarding something. Let's say they're feeling depressed or anything like that. We do have the 24-hour crisis helpline in Guam, and it's 647-8833. And they'll be able to help you. They'll be able to connect you to local resources to get you the help that you need, whether you are extremely suicidal or whether you have any other mental health issues that you really need to work out.
Thank you, Andrew. Ven, anything in closing before I let you go?
Well, thank you for having us. I hope your audience follows us on Instagram. We'll be posting more campaigns. Right now we have a self-care campaign. It's very interactive, very educational, sometimes fun.
Right. Ven, before, can you maybe tell us a little bit about exactly what self-care is? But, for some people in my generation, I'm 47, they hear this, they think, oh, it's a woke thing. Is it real? It's real, though. And explain what it is.
Oh, well, essentially self-care is just taking care of yourself. That could be physical self-care, practical self-care, mental self-care. There's a lot of different kinds of self-care, even spiritual self-care. So it's just taking action, doing things to maintain your health or prevent illness in the future. So especially for mental illness, self-care is really important. Every day we experience different stressors. And every day we have to reduce our stress or maintain our health because of all these things we experience. So self-care is really important. It's not a selfish thing, it's necessary. Yeah, so if you want to learn more about self-care, you can find a lot of that information on our Instagram.
Give us some examples, Van. Like, what do you do for self care?
Oh, well, everyone is different. Everyone has different preferences and needs. So for me, I find that taking naps helps a lot, or taking cold showers. Andrew doesn't like that I take cold showers. He thinks it's weird. But like I said, everyone's different.
Yeah.
I think cold showers helps with anxiety, or it helps wake you up in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
I took a lot of those growing up because we didn't have hot water. Yeah, it does. It does help you get going in the morning. Andrew, what do you do for self care?
For self-care, so let's say I come home from a very stressful day at work. I like to sit down, unwind, play a nice game for a little bit, just to completely relax and chill out. I like nice hot showers, Ben. Thank you. Because, I feel like the steam will clear the mind, and it just feels really nice and relaxing to have the hot water on the skin.
Right on. I'm more of a bubble bath boy myself. There you go. So follow them on Instagram. Find out more about self-care. They're doing really good work. Thank you, Van. Andrew, thank you for answering the call to come on, my friend.
Thank you very much for having us.
Of course. Van, have a great week.
You too. Have a wonderful week.
That's that, Joss. Good stuff there. UOG Ipinangan Project. They're on Instagram. Like I said, they got a lot of great posts on Instagram. Very accessible, especially for the youth. 8:49. Sir, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back with more of The Link, which is brought to you by Calvo Enterprises, ITD, and Jack in the Box. Next, good morning.